what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
I think, first of all, calling this an alliance is a bit of a stretch. I've referred to it as a marriage of convenience, certainly not one of affection. President Xi sees in President Putin a useful foil and a counterweight to American influence, particularly in Europe. President Putin sees in President Xi perhaps a bankroll and an opportunity to get more assistance so that he can continue to prop up his economy and to fight this war.
Two things that are affecting us this morning. That is John Kirby, National Security Council, saying, psh, listen, this thing between China and Russia, don't worry about that. That ain't nobody. As an American, I do not feel that way.
I do not feel that way either. Was he also calling Russia a gold digger? Because he was like, they're in it for the money.
So one of them, one of them is, if it's a relationship out of convenience, Russia or China, one of them is a rich dude, got money, maybe a little bit older. And one of these countries is the hot young chick who wants the money from the old dude. The old dude wants a hot chick on his arm so that people will think he's something that he's not. So the key question, Marsh, which is which? Is China the rich, handsome dude? Is Russia the country, the young hot chick that the rich dude wants? Because that's the way I hear John Kirby explaining it. And apparently Stephanie Bell.
I heard it too.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I would say you look at China's economy versus Russia's economy. I don't think there's much competition there. It's, they're the money buckets that he's going after, and presumably for additional, weapons of war.
As a matter of fact, former Congressman Billy Long's here, 710 this morning. We're going to talk some more about the madness that is happening in D.C. I always love it when Billy comes on the show, man. He's freewheeling, does it like it is. Trump doing some freewheeling this weekend, too. We're going to get into one of the remarkable things I think that happened, and it's the typical stuff. Man, I would pay money. I've seen Trump speak. I didn't have to pay money. I know Stephanie has seen him speak several times. I would pay money at a club, 2-drink minimum. Obviously, I wouldn't take the 2-drink. I would pay money to watch him talk. But something really interesting happened kind of in between. It had to do with the crowd. We'll get into that here in a few minutes on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, but more of John Kirby here. So I don't think Americans, I can't speak for all of us, but I can now speak for my friend Steph. I can speak for myself. I don't feel that nonchalant about this partnership between China and Russia that John Kirby is saying, don't worry about it. But then, and Steph and I love this kind of stuff because Steph and I have been saying, since the tragic events of January 20th, one of the biggest issues, even before January 20th, the biggest issue with Joe Biden being president is on a worldwide stage, we look bad. So John Kirby
is that it's also a manifestation of how much China and Russia know that American leadership on the world stage is back.
It's back?
What the heck? And see, people, and here's why this stuff matters, because people are hearing that stuff. It's like when Fox's slogan over the years was Fox News, fair and balanced. You say the exact opposite of what you are, and I love Fox for what they are. But it's like Fox would say for years, fair and balanced. You say the exact opposite, and it worked for them. That's exactly what John Kirby is doing here.
Russia know that American leadership on the world stage is back.
Does anybody feel that way? So this administration is not echoing the reality of Americans. He's saying that, Russia and China is Americans. Don't worry about that. It's just a gold digger, hot chick, and an old rich dude with money who wants a young chick on his arm. And they fear us because America is back. Leadership is back. I just don't feel that at all, John. The cerebral arguments aside, I just don't feel that as an American. I don't feel that way. Do you?
Historically, you look at how different presidents have dealt with the Russia-China relationship. Compare what they're doing right now to what Richard Nixon did in the 1970s. Richard Nixon went to China and met with them, and at the time there still is actually a split between those two. They don't see eye to eye on some issues. Part of their goals are different than other things, but Nixon went there to try to exploit their. In many ways, he was trying to exploit their differences, and it did seem to work. Kirby clearly is downplaying the partnership between the two.
Thank you.
Yeah, he is. He's downplaying it. They again, their goals are different and things like that, but there are some similarities. Both are communists.
Yeah.
They are.
I just, as an American, everything that I know to be fact, just as an American, I do not feel that way. Difference between Democrat and Republican leadership. So that's Democrat leadership. And we're not done yet, by the way, because what Biden put out this weekend, wow, this was on Twitter. I had to look it up. I'm thinking, oh, this is funny. Maybe there's a new website that's doing parody headlines. No, Biden really said this. Now, here's the difference. Republican leadership. Missouri House has approved this coming down the pipeline late last week. Missouri House approving another round of income tax cuts. This on top of the previous tax cuts. This on top of a Republican state senator, Mary Elizabeth Coleman. She's joining us at 8:10. She's wanting to get rid of the grocery tax. She was actually supposed to be on the show last week at 8:10 and didn't, and apparently it fell through no fault of my own, which is usually the way it works out. So I was quite pleased.
And that'll be interesting because the general perception of the public, and she did a nice job explaining it the last time she was on, it was kind of portrayed to the public that it was eliminated back in 1997, but there was a small portion left. And because of the excess revenue, some of the legislature feel like we could get rid of that. But that does look like it's proceeding and going to happen.
And that's Republican leadership trying to put more money into your bank account. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. That's why what we talk about here matters. So Biden, the other thing, saw this tweet, and I'm like, that's funny. That's pretty good. Well, I wonder where that came from. I'm looking for some kind of comedic news source, some kind of parody website. No, he really said this on Twitter. MAGA House Republican proposals would slash funding for border security. A move that could allow nearly 900 pounds of fentanyl into our country. We need more resources to secure the border, not less. And the people will see that, and people that aren't as smart as you, they're going to see that and go, oh, yeah, Republicans, they don't care about the border. And these, the progressives and maybe people that don't pay attention to the news and people in the middle go, oh, yeah, Biden's trying to secure our border. Did you hear how many kids just in mid-Missouri died from fentanyl overdoses in 2022? Good thing Joe's trying to stop that stuff. People just believe these lies, and it's not true.
Ridiculous. And, Republicans have been like hair on fire since, Biden got into office about, can you get to the border? And then he's like, oh, well, Kamala will go. Yeah, no, they have totally turned a blind eye to the border, so much so that the governors have been pleading for help and haven't gotten any. And now what? They're pointing the finger at us? Ridiculous.
It's astounding, and you start to talk about Kamala, who, by the way, hired a new communications director or something over the weekend because she ain't doing so well either. But every time when you start adding up what Kamala is doing and Joe saying that the GOP is not making the border safe, and you have John Kirby saying we shouldn't be worried about China and Russia, and then saying seconds later, China and Russia fierce because American leadership is back. The only image that I can really, when I think of what's happening, 1,500 miles to the east of us in D.C. this morning? That's the image I get. No exaggeration. That's just bonkers. They don't know what's going on. Trump over the weekend gave it a big rally. Waco, Texas. I love watching these things. I do. Listen, I've said it a million times, say it again. I would love to see Senator Kennedy from Louisiana open up for Trump. Go to the amphitheater in Jefferson City, John. Do a big thing there, Trump.
We could sponsor it.
And we'd sponsor it. Kennedy gets up, 2-drink minimum. Kennedy gets up, does, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. A little intermission. John Marsh emceeing the event. And then Trump comes up, does like 90 minutes just freewheeling.
90 minutes would be kind of short for him.
That would be short.
Did a long set over the weekend in Waco, and the usual stuff. Went after, he did what Trump does. Why people love him. Went after people like Adam Schiff to raucous roars. Crowd went crazy when he was talking about Hillary Clinton, Mitch McConnell. Crowd still cheering. And this surprised me, I guess, a little bit. And then Trump starts going after Ron DeSantis.
Based on polls, he's not doing okay with anything. We have great Republican governors, actually, who did really much better, who shut down their states for a very short time, or in some cases didn't shut them down at all. Florida has been tremendously successful for many years, long before this guy became governor. In fact, probably as or more successful than it is now.
And then went into this whole thing about how he was begging him. Apparently DeSantis was crying and begging, and he's imitating DeSantis. He's portraying DeSantis coming to him asking for an endorsement. Oh, will you endorse me? Because if not, I'm not going to win. But did you notice? Very little reaction from the crowd. Criticized everybody else, including Republicans like Mitch McConnell. The crowd goes crazy. He criticized DeSantis, and not so much. And I don't know if you're in a Trump crowd, I'm guessing you already know who you're voting for in 2024. And DeSantis, by the way, not running for president officially. We got people like Nikki Haley officially running. Vivek Ramaswamy, by the way, I like that guy.
Me too.
But he's going after the guy who's not even announced he's running for president, but is second place in the polls. I just thought it was interesting, the crowd not responding to that. So here's what I'm thinking. If you're at a Trump rally and he's railing on everybody and you're whooping and hollering and sporting your red ball cap because you dig everything he's saying, as I would be, and then you get to DeSantis and is that like, we know you're option A, Trump, but just in case, we're gonna reserve our criticism of DeSantis.
Well, and I think most people at a Trump rally, even if you are planning on voting for Trump over DeSantis in this cycle, you're thinking, hey, next cycle, DeSantis is probably my guy. And so, yeah, I can see that. And I wonder if Trump will change his tone or pull that from his act in the next event if it's not being received well.
That's the other thing I'm thinking too. Now I don't know because I didn't get to. There were parts of it I didn't get to see, but I don't know if he called him like the sanctimonious and meatball and all that stuff. I don't know if he did the name.
Well, and it's a little bit of like punching down, right? Like right now, and I think most people think, I mean, I guess anything related to Joe Biden is probably punching down, but right now Trump's winning in the polls, right, and by a large margin. So he also just doesn't need to do that. I mean, if you're really close, I can see being really nasty to one another, but it's early and he's up, so why do that?
And I want to move forward because I want to get to your daily DC rundown. There's a lot of stuff in there. Right now, Donald Trump, I'm not kidding, has the #1 song in the country. Hopefully
it's better than Trudy Bush Valentine's song.
We'll have to do a
No,
rate the hit
please,
segment
no.
like I did when I was at Top 40. Who do you like, Christina Aguilera or Britney Spears? Who is he? Is it Donald Trump or Trudy Bush Valentine? But apparently it's a chorus of people that have been in jail for stuff related to January 6th. And it's them singing Justice for All while it's interlaced with Trump repeating the Pledge of Allegiance. Maybe we will hear, it's #1, most downloaded song on iTunes. Maybe we'll get to that. Coming up 7:10 when Congressman Billy Long is here. We are getting ready for your daily DC rundown. What do you have for us this morning, Steph?
Well, Kamala is in Africa, and we will find out what she's doing there and what she's talking about.
We always like it when our leaders go on a worldwide stage. Man. Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell coming up 5 minutes from now. Some sunshine.
of the future of Africa on the rest of the world, including the United States of America.
Is what she doing, is it really that lofty? Is the whole future of the continent of Africa hinging on Kamala's visit? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Kamala is spending the entire week in Africa today. She is in Ghana, and not to her credit, Ghana had one of the fastest growing economies before COVID-19, but now they're in a pinch. And so she is there. And like here at home, they are facing concerns over inflation, concerns a little bit about regional security. Apparently, the U.S. Previously has sent troops there to train Ghana's military just to kind of give them a backstop and bolster their defenses. But Kamala is there meeting with them, trying to reassure them that we're good people. I don't know what she's doing.
I don't know what hey, look at how well things are going in the U.S. Let us come help you too.
And it is in response, China and Russia have been doing a lot in Africa, supporting various countries, providing various resources. And so the U.S. is like, hey, wait, us too, don't forget about us if something were to go down. So Kamala is there, and she will be traveling to other nations throughout this week. A bad day for Joe Biden. Or I guess it's just been a bad year for Joe Biden. But he had nominated someone to run the FAA. This was a Mr. Philip Washington, the CEO of the Denver. And this makes me laugh. The Denver International Airport, because I didn't know this guy. I didn't know this guy was the Denver guy. But I've been to a lot of airports, and the only one that I absolutely hate, that is like the worst airport in all of America, it's the Denver airport. And
they have a reputation
for being a terrible airport. It was under construction when I was there. I remember sweating. I had to walk so far, and there was no signage, or the signage was wrong. Just a horrible airport. This is the guy we picked. We picked the world's worst airport, and they're like, hey, let's have this guy be in charge of all the airports.
It's another example of the people. It's not just Joe, it's not just Kamala, but then these people that they surround themselves with. Supreme Court justices that can't define words. You have other appointed or nominated judges that can't answer simple legal questions. These are the people they surround themselves with.
So they've withdrawn his nomination because they knew they weren't going to get the votes. Some people are blaming Kirsten Sinema. She was declining to comment. But a lot of Republicans were saying, look, this guy just doesn't have the experience necessary for this position.
Probably a good dude, but that doesn't matter. We want somebody who can do the job. That is your Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. Have you checked the interest rate on your savings account recently? Maybe a good thing coming from the SVB collapse story coming up about 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how everybody is living right now, so I think the people are fair enough.
smell test. We've got a job not to go into the legal ramifications, but to make sure that the intelligence community has done what's right. And
that's Senator Mark Warner. He is a Democrat from Virginia over the weekend on CBS criticizing Joe Biden, and actually not just Joe Biden, but the office of the President of the United States and the White House for saying, hey, listen, we're a couple of months removed from this thing. Let's not forget about those documents that were out there and saying, listen, what's in them, and show us that you're making sure you're taking whatever precautions need to be taken, being that you had a former vice president, current president, sitting with those documents in his garage. Just let us know that it's okay. It's communication. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. John Marsh is here.
Yes, sir.
Producer Hannah.
What up?
Brian Houseworth is here. My name is Branden Rathert. There's something we could do for you, 874-9390. I think we ought to, I don't know if we should do this at 7:10 or do it now, but we were talking about the number one song, the most downloaded song in the country right now is Donald Trump. There's a choir, it's the J6 choir, and they've put together a chorus, and they're singing a song called, like, Injustice for All. Not the Metallica version of Injustice for All, not like the album, not like the great Metallica album, but it's called Justice for All, and it's this choir singing God Bless America while Donald Trump reads the Pledge of Allegiance. And Stephanie had a really good idea.
This wasn't a good idea. I was just saying, is it better or worse? Because we've heard songs from politicians before, and they haven't been very good. The most, I think, recent one was pretty bad.
I need to fact check what happened there. Stephanie didn't come out and say, hey, I had a good idea. Stephanie was saying, I wonder which is worse, this J6 song or Trudy Bush Valentine. That gave me the idea to John, did you ever work Top 40 radio?
Yes, sir.
What?
Yeah, John Marsh.
No way.
I've done it all.
Legendary news guy. Did you all know this about John Marsh? Who's been doing journalism here in mid-Missouri for 30 years. He used to spin, of course, it wasn't Britney Spears records, but it was in the disco era. John was a top-rated jock playing Casey and the Sunshine Band and ABBA's Dancing
John
Queen.
Travolta personally.
John Travolta. And every Saturday you'd find John at the disco club.
Doing the Spanish hustle.
Doing the Spanish hustle with the...
I used to work behind the board at the disco club.
And he even had, and he had like a, because I've seen the pictures. And
we need pictures. I have not seen the pictures.
I don't know if you know this about John Marsh, but he used to have an afro. And like his regular outfit when he would go and do these.
Did he still have the Marsh mustache?
I got the platform kicks to go with it.
Had the Marsh stash going. And he would wear this this really crazy good looking shirt. And he would wear this vest that it was like not gold plated, but it had, like gold glitter on it. And so John Marsh with the afro, not only did he have an afro in the Marsh stash, but John had a pretty healthy beard. And he would stand at this club on Saturday nights on New York's East Side, as a matter of fact, I think it was.
Careful.
I'm starting to sound like Joe Biden now, aren't I? Oh, yeah, me and John party on the east side of New York back in its heyday. But you used to do on Top 40 Radio, we used to do those, Battle of the Bands, or you'd take, the current number one Britney Spears hit and you'd match it up against Christina Aguilera, and people would call in and vote and figure out which song is the best. So that's the idea we have for the Donald Trump J6 choir with the song number one most downloaded song on iTunes last week, and do that up against the song from Trudy Bush Valentine.
Voice and inspiration for all to see. Show me Missouri, show me Trudy.
Really?
Yeah,
that's painful.
The number
that song is like the equivalent of the Baby Shark song to most of the Wake Up family for me.
And our text number, by the way, is 874-9390. You know what song I had stuck? I'm not kidding. All weekend long, I could not get this song out of my head.
Was it Olivia Rodrigo?
It was not Olivia Rodrigo. But I got to find the, now all of a sudden I'm not finding what it was. Yellow Submarine.
Oh.
here I know where it is. Because of these, the kids at Southern Boone School District in Ashland last week did something really cool. And on Feel Good Fridays, we try to highlight some of this other stuff. Oh, so this was it. Stephanie and some other kids under the direction of Mr. Hennessy. And they did this. All weekend long. I'm not kidding. Like, I'm to the point, like, I wanted to look up, what is the song Yellow Submarine? What is that about? What are the lyrics of that song? Because I heard that. I'm not kidding. I'm driving to my dad's Friday in St. Louis, and I'm getting tired of listening to the radio, and so I just start singing in my head, and I'm singing Yellow Submarine from the Beatles. Could not get it out of my head.
Yeah, those...
Me either.
Really?
Yeah.
Those kids' choir directors, they know how to get you because they know all the grandparents are there, so they know like their playlist. I wonder, they are experts. One year they did Mr. Rogers, but they always get me with their music selection, and they really play to the crowd. But that was a good one.
And they did a really good job there. Could not get that thing out of my ears all weekend long. Did hear about potentially some good news. So the SVB Bank, by the way, somebody's apparently bought them.
Yeah, I think that news broke yesterday, maybe. So.
Yeah. One of the good things that might be coming out of it, have you looked at the rate on your savings account, which are laughable anyway? I remember back in my day, you had your little Passport savings book. It looked like a little checkbook, and you went to the bank and you put in the money, and you could see, and they would show you the interest. And nowadays, like I got $18,912 been in that dang account for 8 years now, and I've earned 13 cents interest. That's what it's like. But apparently, some banks, in an effort to try to hold on to customers and try to dispel any ideas that people are not feeling good about the banking system, some banks nationwide, not my bank, some banks nationwide are starting to bump up that rate on your savings
So it's
account.
more than 14 cents. Maybe it would be enough for a dozen eggs, Brandon. Here's some.
One egg.
I'm saving up for some eggs. By the way, this Walmart laying off hundreds over the weekend, and people... They pay attention to what Walmart does. Largest retailer in America, largest employer. So whenever Walmart starts laying off people. And then there was another company, a national company, and I forget what it was called. But they laid off, Accenture. They laid off 19,000 people worldwide. This on the heels, by the way, the Walmart layoffs. Amazon had just announced plan this week to slash another 9,000 jobs. This is only weeks after they laid off 18,000 employees. So, and I think the reason we pay attention to Amazon layoffs, everybody on the planet buys stuff from Amazon.
Yeah, that's true.
So if people ain't buying from Amazon and Walmart's laying off from people because people aren't physically going into the stores to buy stuff, I'm got me wondering, with my flip-flop knowledge of politics and economics, what's going on? Walmart and Amazon, they see what's coming, maybe? And I don't want to scare anybody, but there's somebody sitting on a bar stool. That's what what do these layoffs mean?
Yeah, I mean, those folks have other folks within their organization that are tasked with forecasting and have, can do that on a much higher level than I can or you can. And so, yeah, if they're worried about it and are pulling back, then obviously I think that says something about the economy. At the same time, I mean, this causes me concern. It also, what have we been talking about for 2 years? That there's no one out there to hire, right? And so some of these layoffs actually gives me hope in that, hey, these are probably really qualified individuals that are now available to work in other jobs. And so as someone who's had to hire in the last year or 2 years and seen that, hourly wage go up and we're paying people ridiculous amounts to just, answer the phone or, open the door. I'm wondering, is this kind of will this push some of that labor stuff back down? Are there going to be people available to hire? And if there are people to hire, then does that, wage come down a little bit and kind of reset us a bit? And I'm not unhappy about that fact.
I like to go to Mosier's because they're local, and I'm a big fan of what Roger Mosier does in this community.
For sure.
It's a local grocery store, and I like the size, and I like their selection, and it's important to me that they're local. Yesterday, I ended up inadvertently at a Walmart. There's no cashiers left.
Really?
Really.
No.
And there's none left. Like, they keep, and it was funny because I'd been, like, you'd go in like once a month and it's like, boom, another checkout lane has been converted. They're doing construction to convert this. And now they have renamed, they have rebranded, they have reimagined what they call the cashier. So the checkout is your automated checkout line. And then the sign above where, like, the cashier is, it's called assisted checkout.
Oh.
Pay attention.
That's smart. Okay.
If you go into a Walmart, look at how they're branding it now. The automatic stuff.
Are you too stupid to use the self-checkout? Do you need assistance?
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you feel like you're stupid.
Yeah, but the other thing they're doing is, because recently at Walmart, they had people queued up and were going through people's bags and their receipts to make sure it all jived, and just to get out of the store took you another 20 minutes.
Well, Sam's Club's done that for years, right? I mean, they kind of look in your bag and then they check the thing. I don't know that I mind that, but they've had a significant, problems with people in the self-checkout, right? Stealing things. So
stealing, and then they're paying more security officers, and then they're paying these IT people. We talked about this.
But they got rid of all their checkers.
But again, they're having to fight inflation too. So, I don't love the self-checkout, but are they doing everything they can to keep prices low for people? Then I'm happy about it, right? I mean, I'd rather Walmart be making changes in the marketplace to try to keep those prices low. I'm not holding my breath that Joe Biden's going to do anything to help me with my price of groceries.
Mark says, get this song out of your head. He sent us some ear candy, or one of the earworms, I guess. Actually, it's not ear candy. Cameron says, just downloaded Justice for All. This is off text, by the way, 874-9390. That's the song, Donald Trump song. It's number one most downloaded song on iTunes last week. Maybe we'll do whenever we have former Congressman Billy Long here at 710. Maybe we can drop those tunes on him. State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman here. What Republicans are doing to put more money in your bank account. We're going to do that. She is here coming up at 8:10. John Kerry said something interesting over the weekend, and I bring this up because as a matter of fact, I had to copy and paste so that people could see proof of what CNN did over the weekend. This was on the heels of those deadly tornadoes that went stretched across Mississippi. By the way, we had some nasty weather latter part of last week. Some people died in some flooding in southeast Missouri. But the front page of CNN's website the other day was just astounding. But check this out. John Kerry, who's a climate alarmist, being interviewed.
People who go to Davos to talk about climate change fly private. It seems like they don't want to make...
So the guy brings up the point, you and all your cronies, says, hey, we're going to Davos and we're going to bring the smartest minds in the world as it relates to climate change, and we are going to talk about climate change. And the guy is saying, well, but how do y'all get there? Private jets. How did John Kerry respond to that? That's coming up 5 minutes from now. Right now, John Marsh, 1977, the Afro, gold vest.
people who go to Davos to talk about climate change fly private. It seems like they don't want to make.
So this guy, he's interviewing climate alarmist John Kerry, and he's like, so y'all get together and you go and fly to these fancy places, by the way, and you talk about climate change and you enact new stuff. How do you get there? Private jets. So this guy's asking John Kerry about that. Okay, let's do his answer.
Actually, I've talked to them about it. They offset. They buy offsets, they offset, and they are working harder than most people I know.
So you say, I've talked to him about that. Well, but what about you, dude? You have been one of the most egregious offenders, in the past. But he's saying, well, they use offsets, and I don't understand offsets completely. I think it's something you can, in effect, you can say, well, I saved some carbon emissions over here, so I'm going to take the excess and blow it on my trip to Davos to talk about green energy.
I mean, have they heard of Zoom? Like, they could just all stay home, and then you wouldn't need to offset, right? And you could just meet via, I mean, that's what they wanted us to do.
Yeah. That's what we are going to make you do this. We don't want to do it. We like ride. You get to fly private jets all the time. They're pretty nice, aren't they? Yeah, I would fly in a private jet any day of the week.
Right? It'd be nice if everyone could just take a jet over to Davos, but that's not how the world works.
Did I tell you recently, because this has happened to you, when I went to see the grandkids, we got upgraded each leg of the flight to first class. Upgraded, didn't pay for, just happened to get upgraded every time. Except for the last leg from Dallas to Columbia. There was only one.
If you stay loyal to American out of Columbia, you can rack up your miles, and they will do some complimentary upgrades.
Guess who was sitting in the back of the plane in the middle seat like this? It was me. I didn't get the first class seat. But you know this struggle.
I've done it before, and I got the upgrade, and Chris and I were on separate reservations, and I left him in the back.
Man, did that cause issues?
That was the time that I won't hate on the Columbia. We did not end up with that day where we were supposed to, and it was a long day. But I was thankful to be closer to the front, so I knew what was going on. But
tell Mr. Bell I feel his pain now, man.
It's okay.
I won't say humiliating, but it is a humbling experience.
Oh, sad. No, he was just I was down in Florida, and we had made a last-minute decision for him to come join me, and so he was just happy to be on the beach for a couple of days. It was beautiful.
Coming up a little bit after 7 o'clock, former Congressman Billy Long is going to be joining us. Oh, so I bring up the John Kerry climate stuff. So after the, a crazy tornado over the weekend in Mississippi late Friday night, CNN, of course, they use that to then pimp their climate alarmism. And I even took a screenshot so that nobody would think I was making this up. This was top page of CNN. There's a story about the tornado, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories about climate change. The Antarctic penguins struggle to survive with record low sea ice. As flooding increases, these cities are designed to work with, not against, the water. How the climate crisis may be changing the way tornadoes behave. See where new dangerous storms could hit. This is all on front page. And then 2 tigers recaptured after escaping. Oh, wait, I didn't just blow What's Hot with Hannah, did I?
Uh-oh.
Whoops. So
we are going to have to rename What's Hot with Hannah of just like what's escaped today.
What's Hot with Hannah, 7:25-ish. So we won't give away the whole story because that is what's coming up. So be here 7:25. Also before that, former Congressman Billy Long talking about the BS in the D.C. It's coming up here this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. John Kirby, National Security Council. I don't feel that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I do think you're off base. I hate to say that, Brandon, but, whenever this happened under Trump, whenever China and Russia got together like this under Trump, nothing ever came. Oh, wait a minute. That didn't happen, did it?
We're digging what you're throwing down, Mr. Long.
It's just, weakness is something you do not want to put out there on the world stage, not the national stage, the world stage. And that's what this administration has been all about from day one. And who was it that said that every foreign policy decision that Biden had made ever since back in the 80s, 90s had been 100%? Robert Gates. He was, when I first got elected to Congress, my wife and I went out for orientation, and that was one of the first things that we did was had a meeting with Robert Gates, and he, later went on to write the book where he said that Biden was totally incompetent on foreign policy issues, and I believe that the man is.
All right, former Congressman Billy Long, used to rep Southwest Missouri, joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, along with Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, producer Hannah, and Brian. Hey, Billy, do you need us to call you back later? You sound busy. You want us to call you back some other time?
Switched over to the car phone.
Oh, all right. We're not bothering.
There you go.
We're not bothering you, are we?
No.
All right. All right, so everybody's here. Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, producer Hannah, Brian Hausworth, and we're hanging out with Congressman Billy Long.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Congressman, we appreciate you joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. We enjoyed having you in studio a couple of weeks ago. You're not in Congress now. You're kind of watching things closely. Your replacement is a gentleman that you know well. His name is Eric Burleson, and our listeners know who he is. Many of them do because he served for a number of years in the Missouri House and the Missouri Senate. Your thoughts on Congressman Burleson's voting record and his performance in the first, let's say, 3 months?
I think that he and Mark Alford both have gotten off to really, really good starts. I was actually made my first return visit to Washington last week, and it reminded me why I don't want to be there. I got on the plane here, boarded at 5 o'clock in Springfield, and the number one place for broken overhead luggage storage bins on American Airlines and their whole system of Springfield, Missouri. They fly those little planes out here. Everybody tries to wad their stuff up, end up breaking the latch, which happened last Monday. We sit there an hour and a half. The guy goes by me early on. I said, get some duct tape. Well, that was okay, but they had to do paperwork for 45 minutes before they could get the duct tape and fix the compartment. So we took off an hour and 20 minutes late, missed our flight in Chicago to get into D.C., and I thought, this is why I'm glad I'm not in Congress anymore, the travel, those 4 flights a week. But, I think Eric's doing a very, very good job. I think Mark Alford is off to a great start, too. So I think that it was time to, get some new blood in there, and it doesn't hurt to change congressman like it's changing a diaper, and for the same reason. So I think they're both doing great.
Former Congressman Billy Long hanging out with us this morning. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So we can look at all the things happening in D.C., and I know kind of by virtue of what we do, we have to call out crap, and a lot of it is criticizing some of these. It's not the people that are Democrats. It's their policies. It is the way they think on a lot of these things. But I'm wondering, how can we, especially as I look at this impending matchup between Trump and DeSantis, for example, and I know you've done a lot with Trump over the years as the guy who developed the Trump train phrase. I guess I just wonder, how can we put across the same message about conservative values, conservative leadership, but not argue with people and not the name calling? It just seems like there's a better way that conservatives and us smart people can promote our message. What do you think?
Well, Trump, that's how Trump operates. I mean, you're never going to stop from giving people name tags and name calling and everything. And, not that it's necessary, but it was effective for him at work. He had one of the best 4 years ever in the White House. Governor DeSantis has had one of the best, 5 years now ever in the Florida House and, running the state down there. And so the two completely different styles, but they're both political by nature, even though Trump was not in politics before while Ron was. I served with DeSantis up in D.C. in the House. And so it's just something that comes with the territory when you get Donald J. Trump. And I think that if there's more than one person in there, that it's going to be a Trump victory for Trump in the primary. Now, I think either one of them are going to have a very, very, very difficult time unseating Biden, because that's just the way the American public, that's their thought process right now. They really don't care how high interest rates get, how high gas gets, how high, how terrible the economy is, inflation running through the roof. They just are, bound and determined to get people in that are pro-abortion is one of the main things they vote on these days, which that had never happened before. Before the overturning of Dobbs, that had never happened. People did not go to the polls to vote on abortion. But as soon as that happened, you saw the result in Kansas. Now it's going to be on the ballot in Missouri, according to Dave Clemens with Missouri Right to Life. And I know they're very concerned about that, and I think they should be. So I think that, like I said before, that weekend at Bernie's, I think Joe Biden could be deceased in his basement and still win. They wouldn't tell us, for 4 or 5 months. Yeah. They'd say, well, he's just recovering from this, that, or the other. So I think it's going to be a tough road for DeSantis or Trump.
Yeah, and I share some of your same opinions. I get railed a lot here on the show, and when I say it would be better, Trump would easily win a GOP primary. I think DeSantis would have a far better chance of winning a general election, as much as we love Trump, because you got, people. There's all the people out, and I'll just look at the 2020 red wave, right? These people that aren't affiliated with political parties, they are deciding elections, and if they are the ones that are going to be deciding, it just simply Trump will not win a general. And I wish that he would. Former Congressman Billy Long, anything else you'd like to add before we let you get on with your day?
No, just to wrap up on that a little bit, you're right. I think DeSantis would have a better shot in the general. However, to get to the general, and I think it's going to be DeSantis' Achilles heel if Trump stays in. He can pack an arena anywhere, pack a stadium anywhere, and I just don't see. People love DeSantis. I mean, they really, really do, and Florida's a big state, and so he may do better in the primary than I think he will. But you got to win that primary before you can win the general election.
All right, former Congressman Billy Long this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Always fun hanging out with you.
Can you hear that guy's Jake brakes next to me?
Yeah. Well, Congressman Billy Long, I envision him driving in his car there in Springfield like he's doing 3 things at once. I'm betting he was also eating a breakfast sandwich and drinking a cup of coffee while he was talking to us and doing all this stuff and holding his phone out the car window. Hey, you hear the Jake brakes next to me?
That's it. And hauling a trailer full of cattle to the sale barn.
Probably. Some of the things coming up this morning, a little bit later, State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman, grocery tax. And some, it's fun to look at polling for what it's worth. We actually have some polling as it relates to stuff happening here in Missouri. Do you approve or disapprove of Josh Hawley's job? What about Mike Parsons' job? Various tax relief measures being promoted and pushed through in our state legislature. Which of the following would you prefer? So what is it? Do people want the corporate tax rate cut the most? They want the state income tax cut the most? What is it? Some of the things we're going to be sharing with you this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. You have kids, Steph. Do they ever watch I'm astounded every time I go see my grandkids in Idaho. Like, they don't watch TV. They have their channels on YouTube that they pop up. They watch no TV. Everything they watch is YouTube Kids.
Yeah, they love YouTube.
Yeah, and so your kids are doing the same thing.
My son's getting older, so he's liking sports on TV. But that's really, and of course he loves the WWE, right? A little bit of wrestling, a little bit of sports. But for sure, the girls and him, especially when they're younger, YouTube Kids is it.
There was over the weekend apparently a woman, and there's a popular, and I've seen the cartoon, like the train, the talking train. Is it Thomas? Thomas the Train.
That's been around for a while.
Right.
That was like when I was a kid.
No kidding, Thomas the Tank It.
Yeah. So I'd seen it before, but apparently on the YouTube Kids channel, and I don't know if it was like a parody or a spoof, but a mom recorded and said, "You hear what this Thomas the Train is telling kids.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chug. I'm gonna chew. I'm gonna.
Kind of real disguised in there. Do it again. So at the end, the train is saying, the train on YouTube Kids channel. This is why we always talk about paying attention to what our kids are doing. The train says, I'm going to kill you all.
What?
I'm gonna.
That was on the YouTube Kids channel.
That is scary.
Do you know what your kids are watching on YouTube? I don't. They're not my kids. They're just my grandkids.
My daughter, and you think like the advertising doesn't get to them, but it does. And I was wearing a belt with a gold buckle, and my daughter says, "Is that the Gucci belt, Mom?" 8 years old, and I said, "No, this is a Target belt, Amelia." And I do not have any Gucci belts. Thank you very much. And then my son gave me this whole pitch about, hey, next time, instead of this sports drink or this sports drink, can we get this other one? Because it has 3 times the electrolytes as this one, and is lobbying for, and I'm like, how many of these commercials have you seen that you can repeat the exact talking points back to me? But he was lobbying hard for a new sports drink in the Bell household.
Kids is smart. Couple of things I'm looking forward to today. Number one is going to be mostly sunny. High at 53. Other thing I'm looking forward to, what's hot with Hannah coming up 7:25-ish. What do you have for us, Hannah?
We got some more escaped inmates.
Escaped inmates.
Of the furry variety.
That's coming up in What's Hot with Hannah. Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:26.
Time for What's Hot with Hannah.
I hope the Wake Up family isn't getting sick of hearing about escaped zoo animals.
There's been a story.
Yeah, the stories just keep coming, and I can't not share them with the family. There were 2 more stories that came out over the weekend, and one happened here in the States, and one was, can I say across the pond for South Korea? Is that accurate? It's not Canada, right?
Right.
So in Korea, South Korea, they had a zebra escape. And Seoul, South Korea is a very busy city. Think like New York City. And there was a zebra on the loose. And he was on the loose for like 3.5 hours. They finally put up a big fence around a residential area and they trapped him and they sedated him and was able to get him back to the zoo. But it makes me think of Marty the zebra from Escape from Madagascar. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie.
Who was the dude? Was it? It seemed like it was August of this year. I thought some dude from the Lake of the Ozark area who had a zebra or something that got loose. Remember we had him on the show?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, that zebra was loose for a couple weeks, wasn't it?
Been out enough. His thing was probably breeding out in the wild.
And that zebra's name was Marty, and he was missing, I think, Miller County. He was out for a long time. But in Missouri, there's like room for zebra to kind of roam and hang out. I assume in this city, less room for that. I've heard, I mean, Hannah, you're not the only one who's like zeroed in on this because other people are like, are the animals rebelling against us? Because it does seem like they've had a lot of angst and lately, and there's been a lot of them on the loose.
Well, and is this something that happens all the time, but we're just now hearing about it because it's like popular now? Or is it truly a coincidence that all these animals are escaping at the same time?
Here's what I'm thinking in the what if barrel. Like maybe they're looking for the ark. Maybe it's that
the
time.
end times.
It's the end times.
No.
And we're all going to be caught off guard. Dude, all the animals are escaping 2 by 2 from the zoo.
So down south in Georgia, of course, they got hit by some pretty serious tornadoes over the weekend. And one of those tornadoes caused a tiger to escape from a safari park. So not a zoo, but a safari park. And about 8:30 in the morning, the Troup County Sheriff's Office put out the APB saying, hey, there's a tiger on the loose. Just be aware.
I mean, we ain't doing nothing about it, but just so you know.
Right. And then 2 hours later, the safari park said, wait, actually, we're missing 2 tigers. So they had, like, the fire department, the police department, everyone was out looking for these tigers. And the tigers wandered back to basically where their enclosure was at the safari park. They knew where their meal was coming from.
Good tiger. Good tiger. I love that. And that's What's Hot with Hannah. I agree. It does seem like over the past month and a half, 2 months, like there's been a whole slew of animals busting out.
Probably 10 or more stories I've done now.
Yeah.
It's to the point where people send me these articles whenever they see them.
And somebody, I think it was Marsh, said Ben the bear, the bear from St. Louis that got out a couple of times and finally got shipped to another prison, said he did the perp walk. They had the bear photographers, handcuffs,
shackles,
everything. Oh, bother.
Coming up just a few minutes from now, what's misphonia? And am I saying it right? Most relationships suffer from this. Could you be one?
I think just local news is like the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of like bad stuff going on around me, but it's the most relevant to me.
There's been a 1 cent drop in the average price of gasoline. Regular grade is now $3.52 nationally, and it compares wonderfully to last year's price. It's an 85-cent discount under its year-ago point.
But, anyhow, I don't want to go negative. That's where gas prices are coming up. Dow closed up 132 points on Fridays, coming up 8:25. Morning Bell, business news, little twist. Only Stephanie Bell can give you. And plus, we'll see what how the futures are looking for your retirement plans. This morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, I am Branden Rathert. There is the aforementioned Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here.
Hola.
Mr. Brian Houseworth is here. John Marsh is here. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Glad you all could be here. Glad you could be here, too. 874-9390 is the text. When I get into this is something I think every relationship, whether you're married, whether you're just dating, whatever it is, it seems like a lot of relationships are affected by this. And it's important because a lot of people, it's just not that big of a deal. You're just getting on each other's nerves. But apparently, I didn't know this, it's like a real scientific condition. Like a real thing. If you're in a relationship or have ever been in a relationship or you want to be in a relationship or if you're all of the above, you want to listen for this ailment that could be hurting your relationship. Gas prices are down. Some folks excited about that. Folks are excited about there's a new number one song, most downloaded song in the country last week. And
Taylor Swift, Morgan Wallen.
Should be. It's number one on iTunes. And I guess it's a powerful song. Some folks have heard, as a matter of fact, we got a text about it already this morning. And I did not know this, but apparently there is a choir. And I think it's called the J6 Choir. And it's a choir made up of people who have exclusively have been into prison or are in prison because of the events of January the 6th, because of what they did. So they formed a choir, and they're singing a song, Justice for All. And Trump is featured in the song reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. This thing is the most downloaded song in the country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
So, yeah, nice, powerful. But Stephanie, actually, I don't want to misspeak here. This was not Stephanie's idea, but she had mentioned.
You told me there was a song that, Trump put out, and typically songs and politicians aren't very good. The last one I heard was really not good.
So we got this idea.
Oh, man, that is brutal.
Show me Missouri, show me Trudy.
Because we were talking earlier when John was the disc jockey for the disco radio station, he would do these, you do the battle of the songs. You put up Casey and the Sunshine Band against Gloria Gaynor. Then the next night it's Gloria Gaynor against ABBA's Dancing Queen. And you would do these battle of the song. And we thought we could do that with this too. But I think
there is no question.
No.
Which one wins?
Absolutely. Everybody knows which song is the winner there. So there is something, and I didn't know there was really a name for this. Everything has a name for it, I guess. But it's called I think it's misophonia, and this affects
mesothelioma.
Well, that can be kind of dangerous too.
Misophonia.
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 Have you ever heard of misophonia?
Misophonia.
No.
Anybody ever studied Latin?
Yes.
And still with knowing Latin? I can't figure the word out either.
I don't know what it means.
It's people with misophonia have strong negative, and this affects relationships, have strong negative reactions to certain sounds.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that's come out most in this study, chewing or sniffing of a spouse. When people
sniffing your spouse, what?
Or chewing your spouse.
Or chewing your spouse. But when your spouse or your significant other, when they're chewing, and you've heard that story about we're to the point in the relationship when this guy eats his Cheerios in the morning, like, my goodness, it drives me insane. And it's a real affliction, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have this. I can't stand mouth noises.
Same.
Yeah, you have it a little bit too, but and with little kids it's really hard and so I'm trying really hard to make sure they have good manners moving forward, but they're constantly, and we're saying close your mouth when you chew, close your mouth when you chew. But it's a constant battle at our house, and I know it hasn't affected our relationship, but early on I had to give Chris some pointers.
Some pointers.
He grew up with.
Does your husband listen to this show?
Yes, he would admit this. He grew up with brothers, older brothers, and with a lot of people around, and so he got in the habit of eating very fast. And I think a lot of people will get in this habit or whatever. So it wasn't like chewing, open mouth chewing. It was more like I can hear you trying to breathe and eat at the same time because you're eating so fast, and it was
wolfing down the last pork chop.
Exactly. And so there were some pointers in there about nope, we this is not going to work for me. But I think for a lot of people, if you have bad table manners, it's an immediate no.
Fortunately, I in my house don't really struggle with this. However, here at work, when we have our headphones on and we're all talking, or if we have guests on, sometimes I get the ick a little bit by certain mouth noises.
Or nostril breathing.
Or sniffing, yeah. And I hate this because
I wasn't going to go there, but yeah.
I don't feel like I had as many particular sensitivities until this show.
By the way,
and it's heightened.
We are aware, because we've had people have brought this up, like, hey,
we shouldn't be talking about this without him in here.
You're right. You're probably right. That would be more reasonable. If you're going to talk about somebody behind their back, do it to their face.
You guys have told me it to my face when they're like, Stephanie, we can hear you drinking your coffee over the mic. Could you please cut that out? And I still sometimes do that.
You
or
did it
sniff.
this morning.
Okay, see, so I apologize for that. Yep. Oh, sorry guys. It's a struggle. But the eating.
Misophonia.
Misophonia.
And I thought it was just married, just nagging. Because you get married, when you're married for a long time, a lot of people say, God, even the sound of him chewing his whatever.
No, coworkers, friends, people on the airplane, wolfing down ribs next to you. Mouth noises are horrible.
Popping gum in your ear.
Oh, yes.
What about, by the way, State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman, what Republicans in the state legislature are doing to save you some money? And then right after that, it's the morning bell at 8:25 with Stephanie Bell. But with this, so misophonia, this strong negative reactions, not just like noises that get on our nerves, but strong reactions. And they label strong reactions as a strong emotional response, like getting angry.
That's me.
Yeah. They talk about how these sounds affect their lives. So would this count as a sound if somebody who talks while you're watching TV, while you're watching a show, and they talk to you while the TV's on, while you're trying to watch the show? Would that?
See, I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of, as soon as the fiance will like turn up the volume after we're done talking, or like turn up the radio in the car after we're talking, I instantly think of one more thing I want to say, and I'm like, oh, by the way, and he has to turn it right back down. I feel bad.
And see, I have found sometimes that even like, you're watching a TV show and you're in the dramatic conclusion of season 5 of Yellowstone and they're talking, and then you turn up the TV when they get done talking and they still don't. It's like, what do I got to do to get you the hint, man? Like, I'm trying everything I can think of. Does that fall under misophonia, or is that just a pet peeve?
General anger. But yeah, so I don't watch a ton of TV, but my thing recently has been, I listen to a lot of audio. So have my AirPods in, and someone like clearly can see that I'm wearing headphones, and they like start a conversation, and I'll take one out and be like, did you need something? Okay, I put it back in. 2 minutes later, they're talking to me again. I'm like, are you kidding?
Mouth noises made me think of Senator Mark Warner. He's a Democrat from Virginia. He was asking.
What a connection you've made.
Well, because we played the audio this morning. It's somebody, he was on CBS, and somebody saying, oh, by the way, and don't forget about Joe Biden and the classified documents that were just hanging out in his garage. So they brought in Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia.
We need more information about these documents, and more importantly, the administration's position does not pass the smell test. We've got a job not to go into the.
Does this sound like he needs a glass of water?
Legal ramifications, but to make sure that the intelligence community has done what's right, and
like mouth noises like that.
That's yucky.
I know every once in a while we'll have a guest on the show that I just want to nonchalantly bring a bottle of water before they come on. Say, here, drink, please.
Paul says absolutely gross. Just saying, as the one chewing with a fork in their mouth. Dishwasher sounds get under my skin, but I married her, so.
Man, Tad.
Yikes.
You're trying to get yourself in trouble.
Tad gets points. Maybe even winner of the week honors coming up 8:35 on a Feel Good Friday. And then on a serious note, accident blocking traffic, Highway 50 East and West near the mall, Jefferson City area. I used to have, when we had a grandfather clock my mom brought home. My mom was in the Air Force. She'd go on TDY to Seoul, South Korea, and she'd come home and she'd bring all this. She brought a grandfather clock. They eventually had to turn that thing off, get rid of it, because the ticking.
Oh, gosh.
Really drove, as a little kid, it drove me to cover my ears and scream.
Oh.
It was weird.
Andy says he's guilty of being a pin clicker. We've all known those folks in our life.
That was me responding to Andy.
Oh, that's
I'm
you?
a pin clicker, yeah.
You're a pin clicker?
I can't
Or
help
like
it.
the tapping? Mm-mm. And like people who can't sit still, if you're sitting next to me and you're like, I will be like, oh, please hold still.
Another food related one that drives me nuts is when like your fork or spoon hits your teeth and it makes a sound. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Another listener, 874-9390. The noise that really affects my misophonia and gets on my nerves is your guys' show. Thanks, dude. We appreciate that. All right, coming up just a few minutes from now, we talk about Trump did a great rally over the weekend, Waco, Texas. I thought there was something really interesting that didn't happen. Want to cover that. And then as we're talking about presidential candidates, what about this guy on his issues?
First of all, we have to quit policing the rest of the world, okay? And we have to quit funding everybody else's culture.
All right, you on board with what he's saying so far? Who is it? We'll find out coming up about 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
The flag of the United States of America.
of all, we have to quit policing the rest of the world, okay? And we have to quit funding everybody else's culture. It's not the working people of America's problem to take care of the rest of the world. Somebody's got to start asking some real questions for the people that work their butts.
You like what that guy's saying? I like he's a presidential candidate. I think he's actually declared. He is saying, listen, we shouldn't be policing the world, and we need to be asking questions of the people that control the purse strings. They're taking my money, and they're paying for free buses in Columbia. They're paying for this in Jeff City and paying for that. Why are these things happening? Why are we allowed to take tax money from people and then allow other people to not? You take taxpayers to use for roads and things like that. That's one thing. When you take taxpayer dollars from somebody and then you're in effect giving that to somebody to pay for a bus fare or to pay for something like that, that is socialism. That is wrong. It's not how we do things here in America, but that's how the progressives like to do it. But do you like this guy's ideas?
Yes.
Amen. That guy running for president.
This call is from a federal prison. This call is from Joe.
Tiger King Joe.
Oh, hey.
And I'm looking. I've been trying to find. I can't find if he's actually got a campaign website. Oh, he does, incidentally. It's Joe Exotic 2024. Nice. A message from Joe Exotic, Tiger King. Man, that is, some of this stuff, when you go through, let's say, like an ugly period in your life or a particularly stressful period, and there's like a song, God, that song was popular when this was going on, or, that we were watching Friends all the time as our relationship was coming to an end. You have kind of those markers in life that remind you of good times and bad times. And Tiger King now, as I look at it, I'm like, because it became popular during the government pandemic.
Will always be COVID related.
And as I'm looking at these pictures and stuff, I'm like, man, I hope we don't ever go back to that foolishness again. What an ugly time that was. What an ugly time.
I'm fully convinced that the first season of Tiger King was just a fever dream for all of us.
It was a weird time. And honestly, I got some pop-up from Instagram the other day, and it's like, look back. And it was, the first few weeks of the pandemic. And so I had taken a photo of my toilet paper stash, and there's a photo of us, and I had found some hand sanitizer, which at that point felt like gold. And then I had a picture of me doing a puzzle. When I was like, what a bizarro, like it almost feels like a dream, Hannah, looking back. It was so weird, and I don't want to go back there, and I was like, Instagram's doing me dirty, sending me all these memories from that time that I really don't want to go back to or remember.
Yeah, recently in my Facebook memories, there was a picture of the day that my mom bailed me out with some toilet paper because she goes to Sam's Club and she buys the big industrial size package, and so she was able to spare a few rolls for the starving college kid that I was at the time.
I think I remember that. And now as we learn about the lies about these vaccines told by a Moderna CEO testifying in D.C. last week, the more lies that we've heard from Fauci regarding, maybe a lot of this stuff we did wasn't necessary. Wasn't there a group of people at the time when they were doing some of this stuff? Weren't there people saying test scores for kids and social development? And we are seeing tangible, concrete results because of poor decisions by leaders nationwide and even in parts of mid-Missouri.
And I will always, forever and ever, hoard toilet paper for the rest of my life.
John, worst memory for you during the government pandemic?
Hannah getting all that toilet paper when I couldn't find it.
Coming up a little bit after 8 o'clock.
Sorry.
Another Republican trying to save you money. State Senator Elizabeth Coleman, Mary Elizabeth Coleman, is here talking about getting rid of the grocery tax.
happening. Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Go to the grocery store probably 3 times a week, and groceries keep getting more expensive.
I would prefer that the money, we go ahead and pay the tax for the groceries and let it go to the school system. I have grandchildren, and I want to make sure they get good educations, and I want them to have the opportunities that my kids had.
Some folks chatting with CBS affiliate in St. Louis, the television affiliate, regarding the grocery tax, the proposal to get rid of Missouri's grocery tax. One of the few states, actually, in the nation that still has the grocery tax. I love the idea. Fewer taxes, more money in your bank account. That's what one of our Republican friends is doing. State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman has been pushing this through the legislature. Want to welcome you into the show. It seemed like last week, did this start to maybe hit a couple of bumps in the road, Senator?
No, actually, I think there was a funny article out of Missouri Independent that seemed to imply that it had, but those guys, they don't know what they're talking about. I think we're in great shape. So there was another bill that became a little bit, have you heard of a Christmas tree bill where everybody hangs their ornament and then it just gets too heavy and starts to fall over? Well, Senator Rick Bratton had one of those bills, and there was just too many amendments on it as a standalone, as a constellation of bills. And so he went to strip back that bill back to his original intent. And so there's, 7 or 8 tax cuts that are floating around. This is a standalone bill, was ready to kind of come out to the floor. And, I feel really hopeful. Cutting taxes is always pretty popular in something like necessities of life, like grocery taxes. Over last week, actually, Arizona became one of the next states to get rid of the tax on groceries. So we're nationally moving in this direction. I think there's broad bipartisan support to do that here in Missouri.
And I love highlighting this because we can talk, and the reason being, so we have an influx of new listeners since the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021, Senator. And so we've got all these regretful Biden voters and younger people going, what happened to all my money and stuff? So one of our missions here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri is to show people, like when this happens in the news, this is how this affects you. And that's one of the reasons I love that you're doing this, because you see Democrats, they want to raise taxes. But here is a Republican who is trying to cut taxes. So ultimately, you're feeling good about this bill moving forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against it. Now, we have only 6 weeks left of session. It hasn't had a chance to move through the House. The House passed $1.5 billion corporate tax. I think that tax is probably going to have a little bit of a harder time moving through the Senate. We have a surplus, but the difference between what the Speaker and the House is wanting to do is more corporate tax cuts, and what the Senate has been focused on are use tax cuts. So, feminine hygiene products, diapers, grocery taxes, ammunition taxes, personal property tax cuts, things that I think people will feel more quickly. I think that there's always a time and a place for corporate tax cuts. That's an important piece of it. But the average Missourian is going to immediately feel the extra money in their pocket when we cut personal property tax cuts, or when we cut property tax, or these things that you're buying at the grocery store every week. You're going to see that more quickly. And I think that because of inflation and the rising costs of everything, Missourians are anxious to get a little bit of a break.
Senator, we appreciate you joining us live. Some background history for listeners who don't know. This original bill to cut the tax on food was a Republican bill, but it was signed by a Democratic governor. I was there when he signed it, Mel Carnahan, back in 1997. I believe it took effect in 1999. It didn't cut it all, but the current law taxes retail sales on food at a rate of 1%. So this would exempt that 1% from state sales taxes and take it down to zero. Senator, it's passed the Economic Development and Tax Policy Committee. Have you had a chance to talk to either Leader Pro Tem Rowden or Leader O'Loughlin about when it would come up for a floor vote? Because I don't see it on the calendar right now.
Yeah, it has to be called in from committee. So I am having ongoing discussions with the pro tem's office to have it called in. This is a little procedurally dorky, so forgive me for answering it
that's
technically.
good. That's good. We need to know this.
After a bill gets voted out of committee, those bills have to get called in from the pro tem. It's the same way in the House. The Speaker has to call them in from the chair. And so once those get called in, then they get put onto the calendar. And then in the Senate, we have to go in order. In the House, the floor leader can go to whatever bill he wants or she wants, or even never go to a bill. So to try to help the flow so we don't have 800 bills all waiting on the calendar, they get called in order. So I have the last conversation I had with the pro tem about calling in bills. I didn't have a timeline, but we're revisiting it this week, and my hope is that we're going to get that put on the calendar this week.
Got it. Thank you.
State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Procedurally dorky. I love that. We're going to quote you on that. She's joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Well, it's a big week in the House. It's budget week, and having served over there, and then, there's lots of folks predicting. I think the House cut a lot of the governor's programs. Can you give us any predictions on whether some of those things come back in the Senate, or, are you even paying attention until it gets out of the House?
No, I am paying close attention. The governor's proposals have been focused around trying to increase access to child care across the state. We have a child care crisis. Everybody agrees on that. We need more daycares. Frankly, regulations and the closures that the government imposed by local government during the pandemic shut down a lot of our daycares. And so working moms and dads are having a hard time finding safe, reliable child care. Everybody agrees that's the problem. But the governor's proposals, not everybody agrees on. He's wanting to go ahead and have in zip codes that have a high enough threshold of free and reduced lunch kiddos in those school districts to have universal preschool, so free 4-year-old preschool. There's a number of senators and a number of representatives who are concerned about that. There was a report card that was just released by DESE that shows half of our school districts are not performing with kids being able to read on grade level. In fact, about 26% of our school districts would be provisionally accredited if we, if we implemented that this year. Now, those results are going to take 2 rounds to be able to get to that accreditation. So we're worried about having our school districts take on such a significant requirement at a time that they're already having a hard time meeting the requirements that they have. We're also worried that this might unintentionally close some of our some of our daycare centers, because 4-year-olds preschool programs are the profit centers. It takes a lot of people for infants. You can only have 4 babies per staff member, but you can have 12 to 14 kiddos for 4-year-olds per staff member. So that's where these daycares are making the money that are helping them stay in business. So the governor says, yes, but we have a tax credit for that. I don't know. There's a number of us who think we should just leave the businesses alone rather than try to move profit centers and give them back a tax credit. So I think that's going to be a hard sell in the Senate as it's written.
State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Senator, talk to us now that the House has passed the open enrollment program and it's back over at the Senate.
Yeah, let's go.
Is there some confusion there? Because for some of us, we were talking about it and said, well, the state and federal money follows the kid to the new district, but the local money doesn't. How does that all work?
Yeah, so the enrollment program as was written in the House, I have to tell you in all honesty, I haven't paid that close of attention to the final language and the nuance of how that works, because I think that we are going to see as the Senate through the August primaries got more conservative than it has been in the past, and really big proponents within the Republican caucus for real ed reform. So Andrew Koenig is taking the lead on negotiating that through the state Senate, and I think we're going to see it get more conservative. So I've been focusing on what we will turn that bill into rather than the way that it came to us from the House. I think that what we're seeing is that the way we're thinking it's going to go is that if a school doesn't opt into open enrollment, perhaps we will have participation in the ESA program for kids who live in that district. That's going to create a heck of a lot more opportunity. And then the ESA program already is money that's available for kids if there's a differential. So I represent Jefferson County. Let's say Festus is a little bit more expensive of a per student cost. because they have higher personal property and sales and and property taxes than Crystal City. And a parent wants to send their kid from Crystal City to the Festa School District. Well, then the ESA program would be able to be used to make up that difference so that the Festa School District wasn't out the money, so that there was a path to be able to have the actual cost to educate each child. That's what I have heard spoken about. But again, I'm so sorry. I haven't even read the House version.
I dig your honesty in that, by the way. Instead of baffling us with BS, I appreciate that you say, frankly, I haven't read the final language of the bill. I do appreciate that. Before we let you go.
The final languages of the House isn't the final language of the Senate. We're going to pick it up and do what we want with it.
Yeah. And plus, we're just not that interested. I'm kidding. State Senator Mary Elizabeth.
I'm super interested. I just think we're going to do what we want to do.
Oh, I know. I want to go back to an event that happened on March 23rd. This was this past Thursday.
I know. It was a really tragic event. It was a dark day for radio in mid-Missouri.
You were scheduled to be on the show. Well, here's the funny thing.
I'm so sorry.
Usually when we call a guest before we're going on and they're not there, usually it's my fault one way or another, Hannah.
Yeah, this is 100% all my fault. So mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's usually because Branden got the wrong day or the wrong time. 9 times out of 10, it's usually on Mr. Rathert.
So I was quite pleased to find out. Yeah, what happened?
It's me. So I don't usually stay in Jefferson City. I almost always drive home. And last Wednesday night, my work got done late. There was a dinner, and so I decided to stay in Jeff City for, I think, maybe the 4th or 5th night this session. My alarm went off at 5:30 as usual. I woke up, realized I was at the Courtyard Marriott and not at my bed in Jefferson County. And I was so happy that I got to go back to sleep that I turned my phone off and just fell asleep. And at 9 o'clock when I woke up, and I was supposed to have been in a hearing, I was supposed to have had a radio interview with you guys, I was supposed to have met a constituent, I just turned my phone off and went back to sleep and woke up at 9, and I blew it. I just blew it.
So I guess we'll take that.
I'm so sorry.
I'm buying the excuse, Steph. Does it sound legit to you?
It happens.
I would come up with a better reason.
You did.
I promise you. If I was going to lie to you, it would be way better than I did.
And you did pull an all-nighter Monday night, right? So.
Yeah, we were up all night on Monday night, and then, it just kind of messes with your timing and.
Well, hey,
don't worry.
It's really just my fault. I'm sorry, guys. It won't happen again.
Don't worry. Branden has slept in and been late for the show several times, so you're good.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, see, these things happen.
Well, don't feel bad. We recently had a local elected official on who, unbeknownst to us, was apparently on some heavy-duty medications, but decided to come on air anyway. And so it happens. State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman, thank you for your time on the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back despite my fault last week.
No worries, man. We'll see you soon. If you need something from us, let us know. Coming up, we're going to be my dad this weekend.
Wake up in Missouri.
I know. I saw my dad this weekend, and we're talking about. By the way, who is that county official that was asking you about skunk weed? Coming up. Daily DC Rundown. What do you have for us, Steph?
This is not the Daily DC Rundown. It is the Morning Bell.
Yeah.
But we're going to get there. And we've talked a lot about salary transparency and the government stepping in and saying, hey, businesses, you need to tell people what you're going to pay. And we've talked about the unintended consequences. This is one I didn't anticipate. And it's a good one.
All right, I can't wait to hear what it is. We're going to do the Daily DC Rundown about Morning, 8:26, time for the Morning Bell. Business news with a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
So New York enacted a salary transparency law where they basically said, hey, if you're going to post your job, employers, you have to put the salary. And we anticipated some things were going to happen, and we said, I told you so. So there are a lot of folks out there saying, hey, the salary is going to be $1 to $1 million. And, there's ways to get around this, right? So we were just hoping that, they would just leave employers alone. And now employees are taking matters into their own hands. And I hadn't thought about this, but it's really brilliant. So there is a woman, she's 25 years old, and she is she's in tech. And she's, still keeping her eye out on other jobs. And she noticed, oh my gosh, the job that I'm doing right now at my current employer is posted on a site, and it's posted for like $30,000 to $90,000 more than what they're paying me for the exact same role.
That's a big difference. Even if it is on the low end of that $30,000, that's a big difference.
Oh, sure. So she's like, well, I'm going to apply for this new job since it's apparently it's worth more than what I'm currently doing. And she starts tweeting about it. And then and so her tweet went viral. It's obviously blown up. She also, there were a bunch of other folks in her position. So she sent it to all of her coworkers and are like, hey guys, if they're going to pay someone more, they should pay us more. So everyone should apply for this. I think the employer has since pulled back the job offer and is like, yeah, that was for, we're going to walk this back a little bit. But she said, internally she's been raising concerns about inequity in pay and some other things. And apparently people loved her gumption, and tons of people are like, who cares about that company? Come work for us. And so she's got tons of job offers now to get out of there.
Have to.
Well, yeah, probably. But yeah, so it's something that I hadn't thought about. But yeah, how demoralizing would that be if you were in a company and then you're just keeping your eyes open and you go see, wait a minute.
It is demoralizing to be in a workplace and all of a sudden you stumble across, hey, there's a posting for the very show that I am doing right now.
Wait a second.
Yeah. That is very disconcerting.
And the program director says, can I see you after you get off the air?
Yeah. So you are correct, Stephanie. That is the correct assumption. It is never a good situation to see that. Coming up a few minutes from now, the latest in these the artificial intelligence when it comes to chat boxes. We will do that. Plus, we have leftovers. Gary Nolan show is coming up at 9 o'clock. A lot of cool things happening on the show this morning.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how everybody is living right now, so I think the people are fair enough.
manifestation of how much China and Russia know that American leadership on the world stage is back.
That's John Kirby, National Security Council. And I wish that were true, but it simply is not. The thing that bothers me the most, Marsh, is that he would just get up and lie and say China and Russia, the reason they're forming this. And he went, by the way, the other thing he said, they don't really have an alliance. We're giving them too much credit to call it an alliance. But when he says that they are teaming up because they know that U.S. leadership on the worldwide stage is back, I don't buy it for 1 minute, and I don't feel it.
No, I feel uneasy. I mean, forget what happened in Afghanistan. Forget what, has happened around the border. Forget what has happened when, Joe Biden, every time he opens his mouth, we have to walk something back because we've heightened tensions that we didn't mean to. Forget the fact that we pissed off France, right? France. I mean, it's just been one fumble after another. And I mean, former Congressman Long was right. He was kind of joking, but none of this would have even been an issue had we had different leadership. And so to say that we're back, I don't know what type of alternate universe this person has been living in, unless they are still scared of COVID and been in a basement for the last 2 years. I mean, seriously.
I don't get that, and that these people can just get away with lying. Because here's the issue. Here's why it matters. People will read this stuff. They'll see Joe Biden over the weekend tweeting, GOP Republicans are responsible for all the fentanyl deaths in the United States because they're inaction on the border. Republicans, and Joe says this. And that's just obviously it's a plain lie, but the bigger issue is then people will read that and see it, and people that aren't as smart as the rest of us and go, oh yeah, did you see Joe's trying to do a lot for illegal immigration? No, he isn't. Those same people go, oh, did you hear John Kirby saying we shouldn't be worried about the China-Russia alliance? Did you hear John Kirby saying the world knows that America is back in a leadership role on the worldwide stage, and these things, unfortunately, they just ain't true, man.
Though the other thing I thought the Congressman Long said, to follow up on Stephanie's point, Brandon, that I thought was powerful is that he flat out says President Biden is going to be very tough to beat, whether it's Mr. Trump or Mr. DeSantis, because if you look at polls, I mean, they let's just say it's 51%, and I know they dip below that. But there are, not in Missouri, I mean, whoever the Republican nominee is will win 56 to 62% of the vote, maybe more than that. But you look outside of Missouri and New York, California, Illinois. I mean, there are a number of states right now that the Republicans would almost have an impossible chance of winning those states. And hard to believe in our lifetime, California, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, California was one of the most heavily Republican states in the country. Not anymore.
How about that?
New York was, too.
Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That, of course, is Brian Hausworth. What was the highlight of your weekend?
Two quick highlights. Number one, Monsignor Flanagan was at Mass at Our Lady of Lourdes on Saturday evening. He's had some health issues. He got a huge applause. He is out of rehab and back at the rectory. Congratulations to him. Keep praying for him. And I thought the other thing, Brandon, I watched the Lindley Rennick piece on Dateline on Friday night, and holy smokes, wow. She got very combative at the end of that show with the host, Andrea Canning, and it was a different Lindley Rennick than I saw, and I covered her trial every day. She was combative, defiant, and kind of challenged the host, who didn't really respond, but it was very well done, very powerful people.
What was she? What were the Was there a certain point of contention that they were trying to challenge each other on?
Yeah, it was Andrea Canning was saying to her and challenge her, if you were going to go to the snake barn to ask your husband Ben for a divorce, why did you bring Michael Humphrey along? That was basically what she was at. Michael Humphrey, of course, who's serving time for murder as well. She didn't have a good answer, and then she got combative, started crying, and basically was telling the host who was challenging her back. I take it because she cut her off a couple of times. I think she was saying to Andrea Canning, "Have you ever lost someone? Have you ever lost?" And then they cut away. I would have preferred they keep the whole thing so we could see it for ourselves, but it was intense. The reporter did a great job. Lindley Rennick stood her ground, but it was very powerful. It was a very powerful piece.
Steph, what was the highlight of your weekend?
Friday night, I went up to St. Charles, Lincoln Day, and I've been to a lot of Lincoln Days. Of course, we have one coming up here in Boone County, which we're very excited about. But huge event. I think they said like 350 people. Wow. Lots of speakers that are running for something in 2024. So it was neat to just see the reactions, to different folks. And then there was a popular school choice speaker. Corey DeAngelis was there. And so really I followed him on Twitter and appreciate the work he's doing in that space. And so it was neat to hear from him as well. But lots of friends up in St. Charles. So that was fun. And I'm really looking forward to Boone County Lincoln Days.
Boone County Lincoln Days, our treasurer is going to be the featured speaker, Vivek Malik, and there's going to be some other folks there. So it'll be a good time. It's on a Monday this year. Usually we do it on a Friday, but they're doing, I think, like a Monday or a Tuesday night this year.
April 17th.
Sounds right. More info. We'll have that for you. What was the highlight of your weekend, Mr. Marsh?
Watching the brackets go down in flames with all these oddball teams that ended up in the Final Four.
I don't want to talk about it yet, Marsh.
I think there's somebody out there who's going to make some bank off their booking for the Final Four, but it's nobody I've talked to.
Isn't it one of the schools, and forgive me, I don't know which one it is, but it's like the lowest seed ever, the lowest seeded team to make a Final Four?
Florida Atlantic. And he is a play-by-play guy. His name escapes me. He's a Learfield. He does some work at Learfield. One-man band. He engineers it. No color commentator. And at the end of the game, according to CBS Sports, at the arena, he lost his connection and they missed the end of the game, apparently. That was my understanding of reading the story. I didn't hear it, but they lost the end of the game.
Nobody heard it.
So they very again, I've been there and done that when you're by yourself. You don't have an engineer, and it's just, you go off the air, and it literally is. It would have almost been better off if he called in on a cell phone. But that's my understanding. But the coach came in and gave him a really good interview. But yeah, it was Florida Atlantic.
All right. Hannah, you had a good weekend. Highlight of your weekend?
I shared last week that I got a little baby niece last week, my second niece, and I just got to kind of enjoy some baby snuggles over the weekend. And the best part is I could give the baby back and go home and go to bed.
Amen.
And get some uninterrupted sleep.
I went and saw my dad over the weekend, and he's been plunking around on the piano for a couple years. And he's funny because he starts on, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and he doesn't perfect that, but then goes on to like the next level of learning. And now he's playing like Bohemian Rhapsody and Memories and My Heart Will Go On from Titanic, and he's playing that on the piano. And I'm like, well, Dad, I want to see you play Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. And he's, he gets kind of that bad. I'm like him. I don't want the attention. I'm like, come on, Dad. And he gets on the piano and starts playing it. It's not that good. It's slow, but you can hear it. And it's impressive. But it was just cool because I'm sitting there, and we're sitting like in this, I don't know, it's like a parlor room that nobody ever uses. And it's got his piano, and it's got like this red crushed velvet lounger that I'm sitting on, like all cool and stuff.
Did it have plastic over it?
It should. That thing's been in that house for 31 years. I think I'm the first one that's ever sat in that thing, man.
I remember going to my grandma's houses and other folks' houses as a kid and being like, yep, that's the furniture that no one sits on. Yeah. So you got to sit on it.
So I'm sitting on it, and I'm watching my dad, and all the lights are out except for the light he's got. He's reading his music. It was really a neat moment. One of those, like, I cherish this right now. It's going to be one of my favorite moments ever. It was beautiful. Not the piano playing. That sucked. But the experience was beautiful. Stephanie turned us on several months ago, and I became a huge fan of the Chat GPT. When Stephanie told me about this, I didn't believe it. Like, really? She'd say, you can ask it to do anything for you, and it will write a paper. And we had some fun with it on this show. It wrote all kinds of stuff.
Dating profiles. Show opens.
Resignation letters.
Yeah.
Breakup letters.
Speeches for the governor's prayer breakfast.
All kinds of stuff. So now they have AI chatbot Bard. It's Google's new AI chatbot. Mm-hmm. And somebody went on and they said, hey, And they did the same question, asked the same question, basically, but about two different presidents. What are some of the good things about Joe Biden's presidency? And then also asked, what are some good things about the Trump presidency? Spoiler, it was remarkably different, the answers.
Yeah.
So again, and with this, the point it was slanted, obviously. So it goes. It says Joe Biden has had a successful first year in office with a number of accomplishments, benefited Americans, and it goes into listing these things. So then you ask, good things that Trump has done,
and it provides some examples, but then it takes the liberty to answer a question that wasn't asked.
Yeah.
And it says, here's some good things. However, there were also many bad things. And I'd be like, hey, robot, I didn't ask you about bad things. Why are you,
That's why I still keep in mind, even these chat bots, artificial intelligence, who's designing that stuff?
We are.
IT nerds.
Human beings,
Who
right?
apparently are left-leaning.
Who are apparently left-leaning. Well, it's the same thing with journalists. We talk about journalists. We're fortunate to be blessed with impartial journalists here where we are. People say, well, who wrote that story? Any journalist who writes a news story, and some of them can do it. They can write a story. Here's the facts. Here, what, when, where, why. It's that why part that journalists we see start to interject stuff that shouldn't be in there. Coming up, we're going to do some leftovers, some things we didn't get a chance to get to on the show today, here during Mom and Pop Week.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
All right, leftovers. Some of the things still we think are worth doing, but we just didn't get a chance to get to them during the show because we spent time playing this song.
Portion of integrity.
So there are some things we didn't have time to get to. The reason we played that song, Stephanie had a great idea today. We were talking about do you know what the number one song in the country is? The most downloaded song last week. I'm thinking, is it a Morgan Wallen? Is it a Doja Cat? What is it? It's Donald Trump. There is the J6 Choir. And the J6 Choir apparently, and I guess they played the song prior to his rally this weekend in Waco, Texas, but apparently there's a J6 Choir, and it features everybody who has been in prison or is in prison because of the events of January the 6th. And it's them singing and Trump reciting.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And there's a whole song. It's like 2 minutes long. Number one, most downloaded song last week. Number one song in America. All right, some of the leftovers, some things we didn't get a chance to get to. Jefferson City Council and firefighters trying to negotiate contracts. John, any sense, is this kind of like an easy thing? Is this something everybody seems to be in agreement on as it relates to firefighters in Jefferson City?
Yeah, because it was a public safety tax that passed in Jefferson City back in November. And that was supposed to help with, salaries and all that so they can stay ahead of the game. And I think sounds like they're going to put the finishing touches on it for the Jefferson City Union Fire Crew.
As a matter of fact, with the JC firefighters, Josh Long last week chatting with KRCG.
We feel that this process should move forward, and we've been at this a year now, so we think that the process should have already been completed by now.
Josh Young on KRCG. Stephanie Bell, you got anything for leftovers?
I had the chance to, I've been there several times recently, down to Springfield, Missouri, and I keep seeing this thing get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's like, it's on its way. So Missouri is getting its first ever Buc-ee's.
Okay.
Which is like a gas station, Walmart.
It's like if a Quick Trip and a Walmart had a love child. That is Buc-ee's.
People in the South are obsessed with it, and I will say, I think when we drove to Disney World, we specifically, picked a route to where we could stop because I really wanted to go to a Buc-ee's because I've seen it all over the socials. And actual, the beaver guy, Buc-ee, like as a mascot, was in there. We took photos with him, and it's like, this gas station has a mascot. The kids loved it. They're said to have like really clean bathrooms. They got all sorts of food options, but it's the first one in Missouri, and driving by it, you're like, wow, it's just massive.
So if you're going by through the lake area, you'll see, and I can't remember exactly which exit it is, but there's some massive stuff going on there. It's like, wow, what is that? Meanwhile, another, and I think it's a former outlet mall that's in that area. Apparently a developer has bought it, and they're going to get it going again, and they want to do this, not just develop what's already there, but then do things like a big visitor center, and there's pictures that were in the news. I think it was like a lake chamber thing, and it's like, hey, this is all great. And I just wonder, because we see this happening to varying degrees. We see it happening in other parts of mid-Missouri. We see workforce development, housing in Jefferson City, homelessness in Columbia. I wonder if they get ready for this, all those big, beautiful new things happening at the lake, if there's people going, oh, and by the way, the employees that work here at these places that we're going to have to keep fully staffed during the summer tourist season here in mid-Missouri, those employees that we hired, they're going to have a place to live. Just made me wonder about that. Some other things that we have for leftovers. By the way, coming in for Gary Nolan today, Steve Spellman. Steve Spellman, a really good dude, writes for his stuff has been printed in various mid-Missouri newspapers on a political realm, and I see him sometimes out in public getting involved. And I got to tell you, for some reason, I had a completely different take on this dude when I first met him like 8 years ago, and I can't remember what it was. It may have been something with park taxes or something. And I just had like a completely different take on the reality of what he is. And now I love it when the guy comes on. Rather enjoy listening to him, and he's been on this show several times. He's pretty entertaining. He's going to be in for Gary Nolan on The Gary Nolan Show. By the way, we were talking about Mom and Pop Business Week. It's people like Hatton Vermeer. HattonVermeerSales.com is the website, the Fulton area, and it's kind of a neat story about how this family, they came to be doing Hatton Vermeer. So if you can support places like that during Mom and Pop Business Week, Hatton Vermeer Sales, VermeerSales.com. Spellman is next on The Nolan Show. See ya.
Bye.